really in
Oh, we've
space.
got one submission left before I hand over the reins to you for the next 2 hours. Beef and lamb.
Yep. Thanks, Sam. We should have time for questions at the end. Look, thanks for the opportunity to present today. Beef and Lamb New Zealand is a farmer-owned, levy-funded organisation that represents the interests of about 20,000 red meat farmers. Now, the relevant activities that we undertake include beef and lamb genetics. We have a trade policy team, an environmental policy and management team, and quite an extensive research and innovation program. The point of difference for the New Zealand farming systems is that, from our international counterparts, is that we are extensive farming systems and we export more than 90% of what we produce. We have only had a limited opportunity to engage with our farmers around this bill, but we did undertake a survey some months ago that would suggest that farmers are broadly in support of a reform, but have some questions and quite limited knowledge. I think for the technical part, I'll hand over to Dave Harrison, who's our GM policy.
Sure. Thank you, Kate. Just following on from Kate, and based on, I can't see you when I've got my glasses on and I can't read. That's all right, I'll deal with it. But look, broadly speaking, look, we're supportive of the need for a reform of our genetic technology regulation framework. And as Kate has said, most farmers are broadly supportive of that as well too, although it is quite a divisive issue amongst the farming community and something that a lot of farmers are very passionate about on both sides of the spectrum. We support the reform because the current framework we have is old. It has been around for over 2 decades. And we are seeing movement overseas with our competitors and with our trading partners to reform their regulation of genetic technology as well too. We think it's important that we don't fall out of step with our competitors and with our trading markets. So broadly speaking, look, we're supportive of reform. We do have some concerns with the bill nonetheless, and which we've covered in our submission. And I think the first one I'll point to is we understand the risks that will be assessed in terms of the nature of the risk. But what isn't clear to us is the approach that will be taken with respect to those risks. And given that the support from our farmers is broadly saying, yes, look, we are happy with a new approach to gene technology as long as risks are managed, we feel that there is an important need to be greater involved in how those risks are going to be applied. And we recommend that detail on how risk will be applied and broadly speaking, appetite for risk is undertaken before the bill becomes fully operable. We also, as Kate said, we export roughly 90% of what we produce, 90% of our lamb, 85% of our beef. And so the perception of our markets is hugely important to us. This doesn't factor in the bill, but we think that it's naive not to consider it at all. And that's a tricky one for us in terms of how you do it. We're not convinced that the regulator is necessarily likely to be the most qualified person to be making those judgments. But at the same time, we don't think that market impacts and market risks can be excluded from the framework altogether. So I think there's more work to be done in terms of how we manage that risk as part of the reform process. Another key issue for our farmers is coexistence. We know that there will be some farmers that will be adopters of technology, others that will not, others will want to be organic and be a wide spectrum. So how do we enable that coexistence to happen in practice? And importantly, where does the cost for that lie as well too? And that may change over time depending on the level of uptake of technology. If you've got a relatively limited number of people choosing a technology that has a traceability system in place to enable coexistence, then you can argue that the minority, I guess, should bear the cost of that system rather than the majority. But that can change over time. And I guess our key point is that needs to be thought about and needs to be considered, and we don't necessarily have the answer right now. And so, look, just in conclusion, look, we're broadly supportive of the need to reform the technology, and we want to be deeply involved in working on further detail. And I know others in the primary sector will be in the same position as us, as we manage these risks around coexistence and manage risks around trade.
Thank you, Dr. Vera.
Can you please explain what traceability means in this context? We're familiar with it from food safety, but in those situations, we're dealing with known, well-established microbiological risks to public health, and also, we know a wide variety of producers' product is involved, those economic risks. But in this context, what is it that traceability might offer industry?
If I use an example that's currently, it's less of an issue than it used to be, but hormonal growth promotants are something that are permitted to be used in livestock in New Zealand to accelerate the growth of a beef animal. But the European Union decided that it would not allow the import of animals that have been treated with that. So despite evidence that it would pose no food safety risk, the European Union wouldn't allow it. So it's effectively what we've had to put in place is a system that ensures that livestock that's destined for the EU can be traced from the farm through to the product and through to export as well too. So look, that's an example of a system where it was used widely and then became used very sparingly, but the cost of the entire system was borne by everybody for the small number, a handful of numbers that were actually using the technology. So traceability in terms of differentiation of product, essentially.
So the counter might be organics. So for someone to be a registered organic producer, they want the ability, because we know that, broadly speaking, most of our farmers are in support of a reform, but this is a really big issue for a small number of farmers. So the ability for them to coexist as GE-free and for that to be traceable through the supply chain is something that's quite important to them.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think there's a bit of speculation around that there'll be, a lot of commercial benefit, economic benefit of allowing genetic
technologies to be used in New Zealand, including agriculture. And this raises a question. We talk about burden of cost on who that should like. I mean, if this wasn't to go through and the opposition was to build would be so strong that there was such limiting factors on the use of it, do you think the cost of people who wish to use this product should be paid for by the people who wish to stop it?
It's a very interesting question.
And you're so early, like you say in your submission, early in the consultation phase. Do you think you could take that as part of your consultation that you do with your members?
I think, look, the question of a key point in our submission is that these questions haven't really been addressed and haven't really been discussed. So in terms of where cost liability should fall for people who want to benefit versus people who don't, look, it's a conversation we need to have. And like I say, I don't necessarily have the answer now, but it's something that we need to work through in terms of the detail of the bill because it's hugely important.
Okay, we're going to go. Steve, one question, then Jenny.
I said
Sorry, in your survey, you found the concern of your farmers for the reputation and the long-term impacts of gene technology on the environment was either very concerned, moderately concerned, or slightly concerned for around 80% in both those categories. As part of a solution to the market access and trade risk, what do you think of the Dairy Companies Association of New Zealand proposing there be a market access trade advisory committee made up of membership of Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade, officials from the Ministry of Primary Industries, and representatives with significant experience? Do you think that could be a solution to the market and trade risk assessment?
I think that's a better solution than passing that decision making onto the regulator. I think the important thing is to ensure that you've got people with the knowledge and experience of that are able to make an informed assessment of the market risk, and they're the ones who I guess should be advocating for that risk. So look, there is absolutely some merit in terms of what DCANs are proposing.
Right, Jenny.
Sort of on both of those last two questions, you mentioned a large number of your stakeholders are generally supportive of new technologies coming in. Can you let the committee know what you think would be any potential market trade-offs should this bill go forward?
What do you mean by market trade-offs?
Well, you've got obviously an organic market with premium pure products going up into the world. Then we have this new technology being developed. There will be a trade-off.
Yes.
What do you see those could potentially be?
Well, I see if there is value in differentiation and value in having non-GM and organic product that's sort of reflected in a market premium, then people will pursue that, and the commercial side will look after itself. But there are any number of trade-offs associated with these new technologies, and there is potential for climate mitigation or climate adaptation. There's potential for a lot of kind of environmental benefit, not just commercial benefit to come from this. So there's trade-offs all over the place in terms of this.
So I think that, like, as a farmer, we need more tools in the toolbox, and this is one way to get those tools. Interestingly, when we surveyed our farmers, the thing they were most in support of was tools to mitigate climate change, to address pest and disease management, animal welfare issues. So it wasn't necessarily commercial concerns, but it was solving all of those other problems that exist in their environment.
Thank you very much for your submission. It's very good to have you here. Thank you.
Okay, what do you think about Beef and Land's submission?
I've got two, if I can come in there first. I've got two concerns. Is they are happy with it, but they've got concerns. In the same way as the kiwi fruit, they're happy with it, but they've got concerns. Let's address all those concerns first, because they are probably more hidden concerns, those unforeseen consequences of the contamination of totally unrelated products. So we were talking before about honey or for honey exports. That's one of those concerns. And then they talk about potential and promises of it's going to do this, it's going to do that, it's going to reduce our methane emissions, when there are already good management tools that can do that. So it's speculatory in one respect, and they're quite happy to go with speculation. And that's where I come to, let's slow down the process. The other one is don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Has been effective to date. Let's have a look at that and properly address that rather than throwing it in the rubbish bin and starting again.
Yeah. Where I sit, I mean, I've been a vegetarian and a vegan for many years. I am opposed to utilising GMO technology on animals unless it's to benefit the quality of the life for the animal. But then again, I come from a biased perspective. But yeah, I do agree with you, Marty. Like you said before, we're a small country. We should be focusing on premium products. And also, you know, America is one of our biggest markets. Now, I know Trump's already cooked the economy over in America, but we still do rely on exporting stuff to them. And they're also our biggest organic sector. I mean, our biggest organic markets when it comes to exports. You know, we do about 86.8 million worth of trade with them, followed by China, which is 81.8 million. And also, like you said, you know, it's right across the board. So you got GMO grasses that could be impacting honey production, could be impacting, you know, organic farmers down the road who may want to do GMO-free dairy or you know, beef. That's going to impact them. So yeah, there's a lot here to be concerned about.
Yeah. Oh.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you're subscribed to our Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, the Order Paper Podcast. YouTube, Twitch, Instagram.